get the ball, you catch the ball. You got it?
There's no crying. There's no crying in baseball.
Viva Cuba Libre! Welcome into episode 22 of the Picked Off Podcast, the hardest hitting 30 minutes of baseball coverage you will get all week. I'm your host, Bitter Mike Babbo. With me, but living the Hamptons life on the East Coast, my partner, Mr. Aric Schuler. Aric, how is the lovely plains of Vermont?
Mike, I'm loving Vermont, man. It's awesome. The weather's nice. I'm beating the heat for a few days, so I'll be happy to get back to Texas. But right now, Vermont is treating me fine.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to really like getting back to Texas. Right now, San Antonio feels a lot like Houston with the humidity and the rainstorms, and it's just been really, it's been. I've noticed that in the 17 years I've been here, it's gotten more and more like Houston every single year. The summer has anyway. And,
well, my thoughts on Houston. Happiness for me is Houston in the rearview mirror, baby. So
very, very far. All right, let's do a quick once-over on this show. Real quick, we're going to do a quick glance at the current standings as we barrel into the second half. We'll discuss what the Texas Rangers need to do at the deadline to cast the Astros, what other contenders need to do also to bolster their roster for the trade deadline, what players should they be targeting, and each of us will name one division leader that could be in trouble. But before we go on, Aric, did you get to see the All-Star game last night?
I did. I watched it in and out. I was messing around with the children, but I did watch it in and out. Not enjoying. Look, I love a good baseball game. You know me. Did not like how it ended, but very gimmicky to me. My thing is, I think anything that the MLB can do to move away from what the NBA is doing. Like, the NBA has got incredibly gimmicky. I think they're grasping at straws. And so I worry a little bit about this. My deal is, if you want to end the game in a tie, kiss your sister, go ahead and do so. But having the whole swing off thing, it's just a little gimmicky for me. I love Kyle Schwarber. Guy's a stud. But I just don't like the way it ended. It just seems like they're getting a little bit away from kind of my purist mentality and becoming a little bit more gimmicky. So that's my only concern with really how the game. I really like the in-game interviews. Me and you chatted a little bit about that via text last night.
Yeah.
I've kind of enjoyed that feature. I know these guys are working, but they're also playing a game, and I kind of like the idea of talking to them inter-game. I've seen some really good in-game interviews, especially with the kid from Los Angeles playing shortstop, making some great plays while he's being interviewed. So I've kind of enjoyed that. So I kind of like that feature. It kind of gives you some insight to what the players are thinking and how focused they are out there. And so that's kind of what I've enjoyed about it.
Yeah, my thoughts were I really didn't like the home run derby to end the game either. I understand that you don't want to burn through pitchers going through the ghost runner rule like they do during the regular season, but I've never liked the home run derby. I actually attended the home run derby in Houston when they hosted the All-Star game in 2005. I thought it was one of the most boring things in the world. Most of your home run hitters don't actually participate in the derby because they don't want their swing messed up. They don't want to run the risk of injury. So to end the All-Star game, look, I never liked it when Bud Selig was the commissioner of baseball, and in Milwaukee he just called a tie, and then he came up with that stupid rule of making the winner of the All-Star game the host and have home field advantage for the World Series. I'm glad with the 2017 CBA they did away with that ridiculousness. So we're going back to this home run derby to decide the game. I know that they can go back and use pitchers again after taking them out, but I guess they don't want to do that. I understand that, but then kind of try and save the pitchers, because I remember as a kid, there were a lot of times that players were selected for the All-Star game and they did not appear for that very reason, because they wanted to win the thing. And there was some league pride. I know now with the advent of the DH and with free agency, guys are moving around a lot, and so they don't have as much pride for what league they play in as they used to, but I still think that they need to find a different way that's not so gimmickly. I agree with you. As far as mic'd up players, I saw what it did to Tarek Skubal. They were interviewing him while he had runners at second and third and trying to get out of it. And so I think that really affected him. I didn't like that at all. I thought that it was bad enough when they were interviewing guys in the dugout during the postseason last year. It's like, get out of here. They're working, especially in the postseason. Okay, the All-Star game, that's probably not as critical. However, my attitude really turned when Clayton Kershaw just played it up like crazy. He was loving it like you could not believe. He understood how what it was like to be the commissioner's legend pick, and he soaked it all in. And,
Yep.
Good for him. Clayton Kershaw, like we talked about before in our last episode, is a
Class act.
Yeah, so I had no problem with that. I really liked the interview with Jack and Jacob Wilson. Jacob Wilson is the rookie shortstop for the Oakland Athletics, and he was the first rookie shortstop to be voted as a player to start in an All-Star game. And I thought that was very cool, the legacy there, and you could see the pride from his dad, Jack Wilson, just absolutely building to a crescendo. I would have loved to have had them interview his mom, but they just didn't give her another mic. But I like the All-Star game. I'll be honest with you. I didn't see the entire thing because I needed to go to bed. It was already.
Sure.
It was already.
It didn't start till 8 o'clock, 8:30 my time.
Right, and so that's another problem that they have with it. I do remember it starting a lot earlier. But, I think baseball did itself very well. I liked the tribute to Hank Aaron in Atlanta. I liked how the fans welcomed Freddie Freeman. And most of the players, actually, I think all of the players, none of them were really booed. So I think overall it was a very good night for baseball.
Yeah, and I think baseball's on the upswing. We've talked about this. And I think the All-Star game is a venue for them. Baseball has a very, very odd, I would say crossroads here. And I do think they're on the upswing, but baseball is really the only sport that has to bring together the purist and the new age fan. I don't think that's the case with a lot of other sports. Obviously football is kind of ingrained in everyone from the time they start watching college football. It becomes natural going to the pros. And so there's not a lot of variations of the game, but baseball's been through some rough times since the mid-90s in terms of trying to make sure that fans stay engaged and how long are these games. We've talked about that. But they have a really interesting spot here where, they have purists, boomers that are still watching the game, still very much engaged, and then they're trying to bring along a younger fan base. So I'm really excited about what baseball's doing, and I just hope they're as excited about the challenges that lie ahead as I am for them.
Well, I think they are, but one of the things, Aric, that's really looming over their head is the expiring collective bargaining agreement, otherwise known as the CBA. It does expire at the end of the 2026 season. So there are two looming questions going on. Number one is, are the players going to strike on the pennant race of in 2026, or are the owners going to lock them out before the 2027 season starts? Both have leverage attached to it, and so we'll see who strikes first. And it's unfortunate with baseball, like you said, on the upswing. And of course, you know what they're going to do, just like Congress does. They're going to kick this thing down the road until the last minute when they absolutely have to make a deal, and it's going to be a deal that upsets both sides, and it's not going to fix anything. So I hope that history doesn't repeat itself, but I have a feeling it will, because that's just kind of what they do, unfortunately. Turning to the races that we see in Major League Baseball, we'll start with the American League. The Toronto Blue Jays have gone off on a tear, and they are 2 games ahead of the New York Yankees, 3 games ahead of the surging Boston Red Sox, who won 10 in a row to end the first half of the season. Tampa Bay was hot, but they are skidded to 4th place. They got swept in their last series. Detroit is running away with it. They're lapping everybody in the field. They're 11.5 games in front of the Minnesota Twins, who probably might shed some payroll. Joe Ryan might be out the door, one of their hotshot pitchers. And in the West, the surprise of the major leagues is the Houston Astros with a 56-40 record. They are 5 games ahead of the Seattle Mariners, who did sweep the Tigers in Tiger Stadium to end the first half. They are 51-45. Back in the East, we have probably the tightest division. The Philadelphia Phillies are a half game ahead of the New York Mets and 10.5 games in front of the surprising Miami Marlins. Then in the Central, the Cubs, who have basically has been leading that division all year long. However, the Milwaukee Brewers have caught lightning in a bottle here. They are only a game back of the Cubs. Then in the West, it's everybody's juggernaut, the Dodgers. They are leading the San Diego Padres 5.5 games. And the San Francisco Giants 6 games. They took 2 of 3 from the Giants to end the first half in San Francisco. Aric, any thoughts on what's going on in the division? And specifically, I want to ask you because I know that we are AL West focused because we are close to the Texas Rangers and of course the Houston Astros. So, what do the Rangers need to do to catch the Astros?
This is a really unique trade deadline for me, Mike. I can't remember the last time. So right now, obviously, you have more close races in the NL than you do in the AL. But what's not clear to me this year is who are going to be the sellers. I really that's the big question. I think you have some on the bubble teams that could be sellers. We're talking about the Rangers. The Rangers could flip this thing on a dime and become a seller. I mean, they did take 2 out of 3 from the Astros to going into the All-Star break. I think they're 8.5 games out now. And so it really just depends on what direction they want to go. I think there's really only 3 clear sellers in the league right now. I think that's the Pirates, the Orioles, and the Diamondbacks. I think those guys are going to be sellers here. I will tell you what I think the Rangers need to do at the deadline to catch the Astros is they need a bat. Obviously their pitching staff is, ranked in the top 5 in every statistical category in the league, I think. So what they need to do is they need to go out and get a bat. Who's there? I don't think they have a lot of spots, Mike, to fit in a position player with a big stick. So they got Jock Peterson. He's going to be out. Who knows how long he's going to be out. I think they need to go out and focus on the DH position. I think that's going to be the easiest spot for them to slide somebody in. If I were them, if they were not sellers, if they were looking to move into a position to compete for this division and decided not to shut it down this year, I would go ahead and I would pick up DJ LeMahieu. He's designated for free agency. He's going to be a free agent. That's lightning in a bottle right there. 37-year-old good hitter. You just got maybe a change of scenery would do him well. I think Marcell Ozuna from Atlanta, if Atlanta becomes a seller, I think those are 2 guys that I would go after to kind of bolster that lineup. They have some guys hitting a little bit better. Corey Seager, we talked about some of these other guys kind of getting it going. They're only 8.5 games out. Their next 12 of 15 are against subpar teams. I think they do start out with Detroit. Detroit just got swept going into the All-Star break. So maybe they could catch them on a downswing and take 2 out of 3 from them. But then I think they have the A's, the Angels, and I can't remember who else they have.
They have the Braves. They have the A's and the Braves.
And the Braves are reeling. And so I really think they have a chance here if they don't decide to shut it down. But I really think the tale's going to be told over the next 15 days whether or not they're going to get serious here.
Yeah, I'll add to that.
15 games, I mean.
Yeah, I'll add to that, too. So you're right on the schedule. It starts off pretty brutal. They host the best team in baseball, the Detroit Tigers, but then they have a little bit of a break getting the A's and then the Braves. And then they go on a 7-game roadie where they go back to Los Angeles and face the Angels for 3, but then they go up the coast to face the Seattle Mariners, who are pretty hot right now, and the Rangers are chasing the Mariners for a wild card spot. They have them up there for 4 games, so it's very important.
Yeah, Mike, if they have not righted the ship by the time they get to the Mariners, I think it's going to be a tough row to hoe.
Yeah, and you might be right. You were mentioning them. They might actually be sellers. They may need to shed some payroll. I will add one more position to their wish list. Everybody knows that they need to improve at the DH spot, but I also think they need to get an established closer. They've had 3 guys try and close. They've had Robert Garcia, Luke Jackson, and Sean Armstrong, and I just don't think that Bruce Bochy is really comfortable with any one of them. Chris Young needs to call up Dave Force, the general manager of the Oakland A's, and see if he can pry out Mason Miller, or maybe he can get Ryan Helsley, give up some prospects. The problem is that their owner, Ray Davis, do you know who Ray Davis is?
I do.
Yeah, he is the CEO of Energy Transfer Partners, one of the largest midstream companies in this country. And midstream means is a distribution company for oil and gas products, for those of you out there who don't know. But he's 83 years old. He's very recluse. He would not even comment on reports back in 2017 or whenever when he bought the team. They tried to get something out of him, and he said no comment. So he's leaving everything up to Chris Young to basically be the face of the franchise, and that's fine. but he needs to open up his pocketbook. And I'm so sorry. I mean, because if you buy a Major League franchise, whether it's the NBA, NFL, or Major League Baseball, you buy it to satisfy your massive ego because you've been successful at everything else, but because you want to be known. And you want to win, and everybody will like you if you win. I mean, why else would you buy a Major League franchise? To make money? No, I don't think you should be making money. If you're in to make money, then the only way you should be making money is if you cash in after you sell the team. You buy it for $100 million. You buy it for $100 million, like what Peter McGowan and his fellow owners did back in 1992 from Bob Lurie, the San Francisco Giants, and now it's worth $4.3 billion. That's what
it's strictly an equity play if you're looking at it to make money. If you do the right thing, you don't make money year in, year out. The way that you build value in a franchise is you win ball games, you win World Series, and that over time, the franchise will build in value, and that's really where you make your money is when you push, when you cash out.
Right, exactly. And it just really bothers me how 25 of the 30 owners out there are in it to make money. You bought this team with money that you either inherited or acquired by being a successful businessman in things other than Major League sports. You're there because it's a toy, and that's what these guys should be doing. And I'm just sick and tired of talking about, because they're worried about the luxury tax. Because the Rangers say, look, if we take on any more payroll, we'll be over the luxury tax for the third year in a row, and then we'll be penalized at an increased amount. So what? Do you think Steve Cohen cares about that? You think the Dodgers care about that? They care about winning, and I want every team to care
I think
about
that's
winning.
true. I think that's true, and you know my thoughts here, Mike. How much these teams should care about winning. The only thing, my only caveat to that, playing devil's advocate here, my only caveat to that is some of these teams are fighting an uphill battle, and they're competing against, the juggernauts of the world. And that's tough, right? That's tough because you have, teams like the Yankees, you have teams like the Dodgers. Those guys can go out, they can play the luxury tax game. And on top of that, they'll be profitable because they have some of the most, sought after brands, in the game. And they have these massive fan bases. I'm all the way down in San Antonio, Texas, and I'm one of the biggest Yankees fans, right? That's the type of reach they have. Pittsburgh doesn't have that type of reach, and neither do the Rangers, to be quite honest. And so, I do kind of understand that. We've talked a lot at nauseum about how broken this league is, from the haves versus the have-nots. And I think they're really going to have to figure that out going into late 26, early 27 in the collective bargaining.
Well, the only way they're going to be able to figure this out, according to some owners, is to have a salary cap, and that is a line in the sand that the Players Association will
has said they will not cross.
And
that's
listen,
right.
This has been in the environment for the last 5 or 6 years, ever since the most recent collective bargaining agreement was struck in 2022. This is the environment that you're in. And I'm sorry, but Bill Nutting, owner of the Pirates, if you don't like the environment that you're in, then get out. Okay?
Yep, you're right.
Then just get out. Okay, sell out. Give Pittsburgh fans a chance to root for their team in the postseason. Okay.
Yep, you're
anyway,
right.
That's my soapbox. Sorry about that. I just had to get that off my chest because I was on the fan on Saturday, and they were asking me what can they do at the trade deadline, and we were all agreed that they were stuck, and I had some time to think about it. It's like, no, they're not stuck. Don't worry about the luxury tax. Go get a closer.
Yeah.
Go get a DH.
That's right.
Go enhance that payroll. Because here's the thing, Aric. When you signed a Marcus Semien and you signed a Corey Seager and you signed all those guys to those high free agent contracts, you signed them based upon their performance that they had or the performance that they did at the time. You can't assume that Corey Seager is going to play at an MVP level or Marcus Semien is going to play at an all-star level every single year. They're going to have slumps. They're going to get hurt. And so you have to enhance your roster by helping those guys out. And that's just the nature of the beast. And if you say, well, we're going to spend only up to a certain limit, I'm sorry, I don't buy that.
Yep, that's right. I agree with that. That's not a recipe for success. I agree 100% with your sentiments on that. But I would tell you, this would not be the Picked Off podcast if we didn't go off the rails a little bit, Mike.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, this is what we're supposed to do, right? Anyway, any moves out there that you see any other teams that need to do? I mean, your beloved Yankees, what do they need to do? you think?
You know what? I mean, the Yankees, they have a gaping hole at third base. I'll
Yeah.
tell you that right now. I mean, at the end of the day, Eugenio Suarez from Arizona, I think the Diamondbacks are going to be a seller. The most attractive guy in the trade market for me right now is Josh Naylor. Also with the Diamondbacks, I think whoever makes a run at Josh Naylor, and I hope it's between the Astros. The Astros need a left-handed bat. I think Naylor would be a great pickup. The issue with the Astros right now is the coffers are bare. They have one of the worst, farm systems in the league. I think ranked 29th. So they're going to struggle to put together anything to get to be attractive for that. I would love to see the Yankees get Naylor. The question is, what are they going to do at first base if they end up going out and getting a guy like that? But the Yankees really need a third baseman, a good hitting third baseman. At the end of the day, Suarez isn't owed a ton of money. So in order to get him to stay, he's got an expiring contract. I think if they were to sign him or get him in there, they could throw some cash out at him to keep him inside the building.
Yeah, I think
That's kind of my thoughts there.
Yeah, I'm looking at what Brian Cashman needs to do. He said it. He was very, very upfront with it. He said, I've got a lot of work to do after they DFA'd DJ LeMahieu.
Yep.
And really, Nolan Arenado was the biggest trade chit being talked about during spring training. So I think Cashman needs to talk to Heimblum and look, just say, dude, what's it going to take to get Nolan Arenado? Or talk to Bill Schmidt, the Colorado Rockies GM, and see if he can pry Ryan McMahon away. Because Rockies aren't going anywhere, and Ryan McMahon he's struggling right now, so he could be get on the cheap, but we know that he has the talent to really perform. So I think that's what he needs to do. I think GM Dave Dombrowski for the Phillies needs to go out and get a closer because Jordan Romano has been absolutely terrible. He blew a bad one on a week ago, Saturday against the Giants. They were up 2 runs, and he gave up a 3-run inside the park home run to a catcher, for crying out loud, Patrick Bailey of all places. He's barely hitting above his weight at 203. And the Phillies are really, really knocking on the heels of the Dodgers for being the best being the best team in the National League. They have a very tenuous lead in the NL East, and their hitting has gotten a lot better. They've got the best pitching staff in the National League, as far as I'm concerned. I'll match them up against the Dodgers 1 through 5, no problem, but they need to get a closer. They signed Jordan Romano, and he's been an absolute disaster ever since. They have no confidence of him when he gets out there. So they need.
Yeah, they got to firm up that back end. So I got a couple questions for you, Mike, around teams like this. Is what's confusing to me about this year is, I mean, we mentioned the Rockies, we mentioned the Diamondbacks, we mentioned the Orioles, but at the end of the day, right? Who are there any of these on the cusp teams that turn into sellers? And if there is, this thing gets way more interesting. Like right now, surprisingly, are the Marlins a seller? Right, they're in third in that division. They're playing some decent baseball. I mean, at the end of the day, they have Sandy Alcantara, very good player. That I think any team that's in contention, in the league, especially the Dodgers, right, who need to bolster that starting rotation. I think the Dodgers could go after him. But the question is Miami going to be a seller? I have the same questions about Boston. I think Boston looks like they're primed to maybe compete for that division, especially with Tampa kind of skidding into the All-Star break. Is Boston going to compete, or do they become a seller? Is Bregman on the table? I mean, they could easily, if they decide to chalk up this year and say, hey, we're going to rebuild. What happens this year is going to happen. Could Bregman be dealt with the Yankees? I really don't know. I mean, I know he just signed that 3-year deal, but he's got a number of opt-outs after each of these first 2 seasons, I think. And yes. So I'm really interested to see who the sellers are. Are there any of these on the cusp teams? Atlanta's a big one. Is Atlanta going to be a seller? Are they going to blow this thing up? I mean, this is a very intriguing deadline for me because you have some teams that they're either going to say, hey, we're going to scrap this year, and they have a lot of good players that they could go out and deal. But on top of that, the question is, hey, are they going to try to compete for divisional crowns? Then they turn into buyers. And so this is a really intriguing deadline for me. I'm pretty excited about it, Mike.
Well, Alex Bregman does not have any no-trade clause in his contracts because he had 2 opt-outs, and you're right. So, but he at $40 million a year, and you're going to be trading some prospects for a rental for 2 months. You mentioned the Arizona Diamondbacks, Eugenio Suarez. He certainly could be on the chopping block. Zach Gallen could be on the chopping block. for certain. Corbin Carroll, I don't think that they're gonna move him at all. I think he's a
No.
cornerstone. But you mentioned also the Atlanta Braves, Marcell Ozuna. He should probably be on his way out, as well as Ozzie Albies, because these guys don't have any no trade clauses in their contract. They are on expiring contracts. At least Albies, I believe, he's going to be arbitration eligible. And so I think that these guys, I mean, look, the Braves aren't really going anywhere. They're in a very tough division, probably the toughest division in all of baseball, and they are several games under 500. They're +2 in the run differential column. They're not really getting it done, so I think they should be a seller for sure. We talked about the Rockies ad nauseum. But do they have anybody outside of Ryan McMahon or maybe an Austin Gomber that might be worth moving? The Red Sox, I don't think that they will actually move Alex Bregman, I think, and especially now that they're riding on a 10-game win streak.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, that's a long shot, Mike. I don't think they moved Bregman either. Yeah. It's just right now they're kind of in this no man's land. They have won 10 in a row, but you've won 10 in a row and you're still not, I mean, you're still a few games out of first place. I think, what are they, 4 games out of first place?
Yeah.
And so to stay that hot, the question is, are they in middle of the road? Now getting to our last kind of discussion point, looking around the league, you have certain teams that are leading divisions by, less than 1 or 2 games. I mean, who do you see kind of falling out of the race around the league? Who holds the lead today and moving down the road towards the end of the year, they're going to be, sitting in the middle of the division or in second place?
My team is the Chicago Cubs. I think that the Milwaukee Brewers are gaining on them, and they are coming up fast. They've got a great pitching staff. Brandon Woodruff is back from his injury, and he looks great. Jacob Mizorowski is otherworldly, and their hitters are coming around. Jackson Chourio is coming around.
I agree. I'm not worried about the Brewers from a pitching standpoint, but I do think they need a little bit more pop to make a run. They're going to have to go out and get a little bit more power if they're going to look to really win this division and take it.
Well,
because I think
I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's 2 parts of this equation too. The Cubs also have a bullpen problem.
Yeah, the Cubs do have a bullpen problem. And so both of these teams, that's what makes this awesome, Mike. This is a really exciting time of year. Both of these teams got to go solve a problem. If the Brewers can go out and call the Orioles and get O'Hearn maybe, or somebody to come in, get a little stick, I think it'd be interesting. The Brewers have their own problems to solve, but I think if it all comes down to which team is going to solve the problem going into the deadline.
Yeah. Anybody else you're looking at?
So I think fool's gold up in the American League East. I think it really comes down to, you heard Cashman after the DJ LeMahieu designated for free agency. They have a lot of work to do. Cashman is not going to sit still. I think he's going to go out and make a lot of deals, more than 1 or 2. I think he's going to make multiple deals. They're not going to sit still. The question is, I haven't seen it from the Blue Jays. If the Blue Jays stand still, I don't see him staying in first place in that division. And their history is that they're not going to do a whole lot. They have a pretty significant payroll.
Yes.
And so their ownership may say, hey, we're going to have to run with this thing. And if they make that decision, this is not a league. You've heard me say this before, Mike. This is not a league where you can stand pat. And so I think that's fool's gold up in the AL East. I don't see Toronto winning that division. I think it's going to be really the Yankees. I do think Boston's going to compete for that division. It just depends on what direction they go as a team. But I think Boston's got a good group of young guys. They got a great manager, and I think they're going to compete. So I think that's really the most vulnerable team I see in the AL. I think the Tigers got it in the bag, and I think the Astros are going to run away with this thing.
Yeah, you're right on with respect to the Toronto Blue Jays. They've had one of the highest payrolls in Major League Baseball at $270 million or $30 million over the cap. I mean, they just extended Vladimir Guerrero to a $500 million long-term deal. George Springer's very expensive. Kevin Gausman, they signed him at the end of the 2021 season, so he carries a $22 million payroll this year. Chris Bassett is not cheap. Jose Barrios is not cheap. They got a very, very expensive pitching staff. Heck, they got Max Scherzer at $15 million on a one-year prove-it deal. And so they really have no flexibility to do that. I don't see anybody that they can trade to offload some payroll that's going to really help them. except maybe the relief pitcher Chad Green or maybe Jeff Hoffman. But Jeff Hoffman is their closer. So if they're making this run, and especially too, I mean, if you start doing away with core pieces and you're at the top of your division, what is it saying to your fan base? So
yeah, the whole dynamic changes. Changes, and so
I'll never forget when the Chicago White Sox did this in 1997. They were like a game out of first place, and they just unloaded on 3 pitchers. They sent them to the Giants, and the White Sox fans just rioted, and I think that really hurt them in terms of their fan base for the next 5 or 6 years. So.
Yeah, for sure. And so really what it comes down to is it's really about what is Toronto going to do? I mean, right now they are feasting on a division that, the Yankees are not playing good baseball. I think the Yankees, since midway part of the first half, I think they're the only team that's worse than them in the league is the White Sox. And so I really think, the Yankees are playing awful baseball, only 2.5 games out. If they go out and make some strategic moves, I think they become the better team in that division. And I think the Toronto is going to struggle to keep up with them.
Well, Brian Cashman said so publicly, so he's going to do it. He's a man of his word, and he's been doing this for 30-some years. I mean, he's the longest tenured GM in all of baseball. So, and kudos to him for managing the New York press and the New York Steinbrenners and everything.
Yep.
And, God bless him. And I think he's going to do right by that team and right by the fans. Anything else, Aric?
That's it, man. That's all I got.
Okay,
That's all
great.
I got.
Great. Enjoy Vermont and fly home safe. That'll do it for this episode of the Picked Off Podcast. Next week, Aric and I will switch spots. He will be in San Antonio, and I will be on the road. But fear not, everyone. We will be here for you. We want to thank you all for listening in. We also want to thank you for your feedback. We want to make this show better because we do it for you. You can catch us every week on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us on X at The Bitter Mike or on Instagram, BitterMike1963. Time is precious, so we appreciate you spending some of yours with us talking the great game of baseball. Have a great weekend, everyone. See ya.
See ya.